Okay. Hello, everyone. We were having some technical difficulties. Sorry for the delay, but hello and good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are joining us from. Let me just readjust here and we will get started. So welcome everyone to what are the competencies to serve families through lifespan. We are glad that you are here. We are going to get started in just a minute, but I'd like to first go over and review just a few things that we like to remind everyone of our commitment of maintaining safe and accountable space. If you experience issues and need assistance, please reach out to me by sending me a direct message. My name is Amanda Grace Creer. And you can find the direct message found on the top right-hand corner of the event. To walk you through the tools in this session, I'd like to draw your attention to the vertical bar featuring several icons on the right side of your screen. If your event feed is open, it's going to be hiding in the vertical bar. So please close your event feed by clicking the X in the upper right-hand corner of the event feed box. The event feed box is like the chat box for the entire event rather than just this session. Once you've closed your event feed, you'll be able to see the vertical bar within several icons, and you'll see speech squares. That's the chat box for this session. The Q&A icon, please use this to ask the presenters any questions, and we will go over those towards the end of the presentation. And you may also vote for questions within the Q&A space if you are very interested in hearing the answer to a very specific question. Next, there's an icon of people indicating the participants in this session. Lastly, you will see two papers stacked on top of one another. These are all the resources from the presenters, including I'm not sure if you are including the slide deck of this presentation. I guess that's a question for later. To enable us to keep up with the questions, we ask that you please use the Q&A icon to share your questions for the speakers, and feel free to vote for questions. Again, the third icon on the top is for Q&A on the vertical bar. If at any time in the session you need to step away, take a break, debrief, or decompress, please feel free to do so. Our wellness room is open, and you may enter the wellness room by clicking on wellness room button on the top left of the left-hand side of the event navigation bar, and our member team will be there to help you. So it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers for this session. Our speakers today are going to be Dana Aspey and Lachelle Freeman. Dana is a developmental educational psychology researcher and author, as well as a mental health and transformational leadership educator. She has a passion for helping all members of the family use their strengths to find person-centered solutions to challenges. Before joining the National Federation of Families as a national certification manager and program specialist, she worked primarily on school and youth mental health training and technical assistance as the Director of Innovation and Research Support at the Center for Educational Improvement and Education Coordinator of the New England Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. Dana co-authored a book called Compassionate School Practices with her colleagues at MHTTC. As a trauma-informed yoga teacher with neuroscience research experience from the Neurocognition Early Experience and Developmental Lab at Teachers College, Columbia University, Dana shares her knowledge of mindfulness and community and how mindfulness and community can change the structure of the brain to help heal the event. Thank you and welcome, Dana. We also have our lovely presenter, Lachelle Freeman. Lachelle is a project manager for both the National Family Support Technical Assistance Center, NFSTAC, and the National Federation of Families, NFF. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Lincoln University of Pennsylvania and a master's degree in counseling psychology from Geneva College. She is a proud mother of two young adults, Joshua and Madison. Lachelle is dedicated to family advocacy across lifespan, whole person care, and policy change that meets the desires of individuals being served. With over 35 working years experience in the mental health systems, social justice is imperative for all. Thank you so much to our lovely presenters, and the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this presentation. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what are the competencies to serve families through the lifespan. So we will talk about, let's first talk about, introduce you to the National Federation of Families. And what we are is a family-run organization, and we serve as the national voice for families. So we really look at supporting those who are caretakers, parents of children, young adults throughout the lifespan with mental health concerns along as substance use. And we do that by, all of us, we have lived experience. We promote family peer support. We champion social justice, and we advocate for families. We really do believe that the families are the experts to their families. And we all, because we believe that, we always like to say that, you know, we accept, we advocate, and we act. Next screen. So we mentioned that we have two centers that work together. So NASTAC, which is the Family Support Technical Assistance Center, is under the National Federation of Families. And really our goal is to inform the public, to provide training and resources. We do a lot of workforce development for family peers, as well as for those who are working in the field. And one of the other things that we do is just with technical assistance, meaning we can provide one-on-one assistance with problems, concerns, and things related to mental health and substance use related to families. Thanks, Dana. And our goals at the Technical Assistance Center is, of course, to inform the workforce, to increase access to resources, and to provide family engagement and support training. And of course, just to educate the public as well. So we do that through a couple of different activities that we have, monthly activities we have. We have an office hour. We have, and you guys don't have to remember this, we'll provide you with that information later, but an office hour with family connections, and we do a monthly webinar as well.
Thank you, Lachelle. Hello, everyone. I can't actually see you because all I see are the slides, so I assume that there's a bunch of smiling faces in the room, and I can't wait to see all the comments you have in the chat. But if you're asking me a question directly, I won't be able to see it during the presentation today. But let's get started and learn about your own knowledge base around family peer specialists. So Lachelle is or will be putting a website into the chat that you can click and go directly to our Mentimeter. You can also go to www.menti.com and enter that code on the screen, 68292667. And we've got a little question to just see where your knowledge base is around family peer specialists. So what do family peer specialists do? Do they draw on lessons learned through their own lived experience? Do they tell parents and caregivers what they should do? Do they partner with caregivers and families to define and work towards goals that will improve wellness for their children, themselves, and their families? Or do they do both 1 and 3? I'll leave this up for just a few more seconds, and then we'll check the answers and see what you all think. All right, let's see what the answers say. All right, we've got 15, 16, 17 people, lots of people saying both 1 and 3. And it looks like your knowledge base is pretty high on this topic, because that is indeed correct. They do 2 things, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in our presentation. So we at the National Federation of Families have a definition for family peer specialists. One of the important things that we do as a national organization is we developed the first family peer specialist certification program. A lot of states have their own program, but many of them were based off of the National Federation's program, and we do work directly with several states to implement the certification for them. Our definition of a family peer specialist is a parent, family member, or caregiver who has or had responsibility parenting a child or as a primary caregiver for another family member experiencing mental health or substance use challenges. When we say that, that means it could be a mother taking care of their daughter. It could be a son taking care of their father. It could be an aunt taking care of their nephew. Any kind. It could be someone who is not a blood relative, who is the primary caregiver of a friend with mental health challenges that they consider a family member. It's really across that lifespan. That's where we really get into it. Could be any age. So family peer specialists, from our point of view, they speak about and use their lived experience to support other families to advocate for their child's or family members' well-being, supporting them in navigating systems, and providing other necessary resources. And at the National Federation of Families, we have affiliates across the United States, 115 of them, that are generally family-run organizations who employ family peers. So we have a link in the slide, which we will make sure to get to you, that you can visit our website under affiliates and find the nearest affiliate in your state. And if your state doesn't have one, contact us and we can work with you to try to set up an affiliate there. Before I dive more deeply into what exactly a family peer specialist does, I feel it's important that we differentiate the different types of peers. A lot of people are very familiar with adult peers who have that personal experience living with mental health or substance use challenges. Then a lot of other people are familiar with youth peers who also have that personal experience when they were considered a youth. And when someone becomes a youth peer, that age range is different from state to state. So you have some states who consider folks as young as like 14 to 16 to be youths. Other states go from 18 to 21. Some go from 18 to 26. There's a wide range, but in the younger years of their lives, they're considered youth peers. And that personal lived experience happens while they're a youth. For family peers, their personal experience may or may not have anything to do with mental health. Whether or not they themselves have lived with a mental health or substance use challenge is not a factor in family peer support. The personal experience they have is as a parent, family member, or primary caregiver of a person across the lifespan living with those challenges. And we have a great resource in the chat or in the resource section that does talk about that. So you could share that with families that you work with, systems that you work with, to help them understand the difference between these three types of peer support workers. So what does a family peer specialist do? They connect families to other families that have the same lived experience, which helps reduce their isolation. Family peers normalize lived experience by sharing their own stories, and this helps to reduce shame and blame about having a family member with mental health or substance use challenges. One of the most important things that family peers do is they encourage family resiliency. While they share their own stories about how they overcame these challenges, they also encourage families to hold that hope that is really essential to be able to go on that recovery journey. They also hold hope that families will find the support that is going to be beneficial to their family member. And finally, there's lots of different ways that family peers offer support, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. So the foundation of family peer support is that peer support. One of the most important things that family peers can do is to listen to the family's concerns, to their challenges, to the goals that they have, and talk about how what they hear in that family story connects to their own experiences and share a little hope. We already talked about normalizing that lived experience. It's really, really magical to meet other people who have gone or are going through that exact same thing as you. Some communities, some people really feel like they are the only ones in the world who have a child with that diagnosis, but meeting someone else who's been through something similar can be really transformational. Family peers have often already gone through this journey to get their loved one or their child from a place where they didn't understand the mental health systems and how to navigate to a place where they have a supportive community holding them up. So sharing those successes, but also sharing challenges and how they overcame them can help the families learn from the family peer specialist. And family peer specialists also learn from the families that they work with, and that can better their ability to support other families in the future. And family peers, part of that peer support is to offer resources that have really worked for them, that help increase mental health acceptance, really making sure that the systems that we have to navigate, the environments that we find ourselves in, are accepting of mental health and substance use challenges and supportive of the people experiencing those. They also help families understand which ways they can advocate in a way to reduce discrimination against folks with lived experience and really access high quality services. We know that there are not enough services for the people who need them right now, but family peers can help folks understand where to get those high quality services when they are available and how to push for services to be of a higher quality as well. So one way that family peers do that peer support is to become a coach for families, not doing for families, but teaching families how to be their own advocates for their loved ones and to really talk about family-driven values with system staff and decision makers. They give them a roadmap that helps them understand how to be equal partners with professionals using person-centered support. And we have a really wonderful toolkit that gives families lots and lots of tools for how to do those things and how to assess the supports that they are getting. Family peers also coach families by giving them specific strategies on how to promote the best interests of their loved ones in those systems of care meetings and meetings with system staff. And family peers and family-run organizations often create opportunities where families can join together to speak out against discrimination at a national level, at a state level, but also helping create those opportunities in meetings where families can speak out and speak against the discrimination that their loved one has experienced as an individual as well. The next way that family peer specialists offer family peer support is by navigating those systems alongside family. We're here today at the Systems of Care Summit, so I'm sure many of you are well aware of these systems. These are just a few and just a few examples of what family peers do to support families within those systems. Attending IEP meetings and advocating for school mental health services in the education system, to navigate mental health and healthcare systems, finding support to get transportation to appointments, helping them understand their insurance policy and how they can get reimbursed appropriately, understanding mental health parity. In the justice system, sitting with families to just prepare them for what this experience might be like, perhaps doing role plays about the court appearance, helping them find representation. In housing, they might be able to connect families to temporary housing if they're unhoused, or even sit with them and fill out those housing applications to get permanent housing. They also walk with families through child welfare systems, vocational rehab, substance use, TANF, and so many more. Family peers also have a toolbox of strategies, and pretty soon we're going to be debuting another toolkit meant for family peers that they can pass some of these strategies along to families. They have self-care and community care resources. They help families understand how to improve their conflict resolution skills. They give them specific materials about certain diagnoses and how to go through this support in a person-centered process. Family peers can often connect families directly to mental health and substance use providers. They also help families think about crisis prevention and often are meeting families when they're in a crisis intervention point, but they also help them think about long-term recovery. So family peers really take not only a lifespan approach in terms of looking at supporting families of loved ones who are any age, but also supporting families across the lifespan of that individual, from when they are first going through this crisis all the way through them staying in long-term recovery. Research has shown some really, really beneficial outcomes of family peer support. And we have another resource linked in the resource section that talks a little bit more in depth about these. But research has shown that family peer support can decrease families' isolation and their own internalized blaming themselves for their family member's condition. It also increases a sense of collaboration and a self-direction to take action. Family peer support has helped families recognize how important self-care is for themselves. It's also been shown to improve well-being for family members and for the individuals they care for. And it gives family members an increased sense of self-efficacy, that they can actually do this, that it's not too overwhelming, that they now have the tools where they can support their loved one effectively. And we're going to do another couple of Mentimeter questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop so I can move the Mentimeter forward. And then I'm going to pass it on to Lachelle now.
Thank you, Dana. And there were a lot of people who were agreeing in the comments about just the that families are the experts, and that the importance of making sure that we know that, and that, you know, someone said, it was actually Jennifer who said that, you know, some of the most impactful words that you can hear is "me too." So that peer relationship is very important. So we're looking at true or false. Lifespan means that the family peer specialist supports parents, caregivers of children, loved ones of any age experiencing mental health and or substance use challenges. And looks like mostly everyone is saying that that is true. I'm looking to see if there are any comments in the chat to see if anyone who couldn't get to the Mentimeter had any feedback, but I don't see any false in the Mentimeter that we've posted. And you're absolutely right. So the next question is, as children become adults, caregivers may not be family of origin, but the one the adult child has identified as support. Family peer specialists work with this person. Is that true or is that false? And I see, again, I'm a little bit behind on the polls, but I see that you guys are saying that that is true. Yes, when our children become adults, or children that your caretakers of become adults, they can identify who their family is, and they can identify who they consider to be their support system. So that is very true. You guys are on top of it. And so let's talk about just the lifespan. Kind of like what we're saying is, you know, once you have a child, that child is your child forever, whether your child is 5 months old or whether your child is 52. You still are a parent or a caregiver to that person. So we at the Federation of Family, we really want to speak to the lifespan, because there are different stages in parenting. There's different stages as children being, you know, transitioning into becoming an adult, and them figuring out when it's time for them to take the reins, as well as us as parents or caregivers figuring out when do we give them more leeway to be the persons that they want to develop to be, right? So on occasion, as children become adults, the parents or caregivers may not be from the family of origin. Again, like I said, the question we just asked, they can identify who their support system is, because every child does not have a great relationship with their parents because of one reason or another. And there may be some tension, and they just may be more comfortable to have someone else support them. And parents have to accept that, right? But it gives them theirs, like person-centered. What does the person want? What does the person believe will help them to move to the next level? So why is, and I talked about this a little bit, but why is our lifespan approach important? How about somebody put a comment in the chat about why you think our lifespan approach is important? Why do you think it's important to address from birth till, I don't want, well, birth till death, but basically birth till death? Does anyone have any ideas? Why do you think that is important? And I did kind of speak to it. I'm scrolling down because needs change over time. Absolutely, Jennifer. Needs do change over time, and both parents and young adults and children have to learn how to move forward towards that, especially when your rights are starting to be taken away as a parent. Let's see what else we said. Families or the primary support person needs their own support. Absolutely. And that's where family peer specialist comes in to support those caregivers, because there's a whole different list of needs that caregivers need to take care of their children. Caregiving is not just up to an age. Yes, it can go beyond young adulthood. And Debbie, you're absolutely right on that note. And that's why we think it is so very important to look at the family across their lifespan. Everyone develops at a different time, different pace. Yes, absolutely. And people can fall through the cracks. Oh, wow. That's a big one right there. As people assume they should be good to go, because sometimes I don't know why society would think an 18-year-old is an adult and can make these decisions. But just yesterday, I was able to, pick up their prescriptions and sign reports, for them to go on field trips, So everyone changes. Yes. You guys have a lot of great, I love that, Carol. Continuity of care. Absolutely. And then last comment I'm going to read is to get a better understanding of the individual and help them continuously. And that's what it's about, because, when you can provide a continuity of care, that is great, because that person is learning skills along the way, but they also know they have a support system to fall back on. Thank you, guys. Okay, so next slide. So I'm going to just share my journey through with my son. So I always start off with, first of all, I need a cup of coffee, because it can get very hectic when you have children and then they have mental health or physical health problems, concerns, challenges. As you can see in the second picture, my son was born at 25 weeks. He was born 1 pound, 10 ounces. And thank God he had, went through with limited medical concerns. And at that point in time, I was a trained therapist in Pennsylvania, and I worked with a ton of families, and I was trained in family systems. But it wasn't until you see that picture of the tiny little guy in pre-K, and he was being intrusive, he was having boundary issues. And the first time I was going to a meeting with the school, I thought I probably have not addressed this appropriately with parents in the past, because I already knew that they were going to tell me something about his behavior, some things I was already familiar with. But I said before we started the meeting, you know what? Let's work together, partner together to get him on the best plan. But just remember, this is my child we're talking about, right? Because I was already sensitive to the fact that they were going to tell me some deficits that my son had. So we got through high school. He graduated high school. Throughout school, we put him into different leadership programs, just preparing him to challenge the world and do his own thing. His first year in college, when he came home, it was the pandemic. He thought he was coming home for spring break. Of course, it was the whole, he had to finish class online. In the meantime, he had a terrible car accident where he actually went through the windshield of the car. And they were so concerned about his physical injuries that they really didn't attend to his brain, to what was happening in his brain. And I do have a history of mental health in my family. So to me, he was a different child, much more different child than that. But it was like, it doesn't matter if it's a brain injury, if it's severe mental health, how can we get help for this child, right? And at this point today, he's 23 years old. And as I advocated for him through different hospitalizations, through different plans, I tried to really say to him, just because I'm familiar with family peer support, that, not only does the parent need to know that they're the expert of their family, but he, as a young adult, needed to know that you're the expert as well. Because it is very intimidating if you're not working in a professional field for a family to come in and the people who are educated and are supposed to know everything about what your concerns are that you're presenting are sitting around the table. And how do you really know you have a voice unless someone tells you that you have the right to speak up? And that's what I do with both of my children, actually. You have a right to speak up. If you don't understand, ask the question. Now, sometimes my son does have paranoid behaviors and tendencies, but I always try to talk to him about what is it that you want? What do you want? Being very person-centered with him and letting him know that there are people who can assist you. I'm not always going to be the one to, be the one to take you through that process. So I need you to learn to do some things. I need you to go to the pharmacy and start, getting your own medication, because and literally that was probably only 4 months ago, like where I realized, like, why am I still getting his medication? But he'll he signed it over for me to do that. But just things like that for him to do. So he is figuring out his way. And even when you thinking about parents having to accept the fact that your child has some other challenges that they have to face, we also have to realize that our children, or the people we're providing care to, they have to accept that as well, right? That's a hard thing to go from being able to, you go to a college and you're playing football and you're studying, to it's taking you a good 5 to 6 minutes to interpret what someone's saying to you. Like, you're just trying to get it to sink into your brain and make sure that you're saying it, appropriately or responding appropriately. So when your life changes like that, or at any point that a child is given a diagnosis, again, whether it's physical, whether it's addiction, whatever it is, there's something that stops. And there are feelings that occur. So to have family support, whether it's when your child is very young or when your child is a young adult, to have that level of support that someone else says, you know what, I've experienced that. It might be intimidating when you go to this meeting, but ask these questions. Make sure they offer you this. Make sure this, or someone to say, you know what, I'm going to go to that meeting with you. And that's the power of family peer support. Someone who's been through that same exact thing can say, you know what, even though you have a master's degree in psychology, this is your child. And I know how I felt when I had to go to these meetings. And I know how I felt when I had to go to a psychiatric hospital to visit my son. There's a lot of emotion involved in that. And to have someone say, you know what, I've been there, I'll go there with you if you need me to. Or, hey, even if someone says, I know someone who works there, and I will make sure that they will look after some things, because we're all connected in different ways. So that, I feel like that really is the power of family peer support. And then even as your children get older, and sometimes they think they know everything, and you have to let them speak their piece and say what they need to say, and even allow them to go their own path, but to know that they have supports and that you're not their only support system. You offer an opportunity for them to have other people they can rely on and other people that they can count on, so that they can, and Carol, I'm going to use your term, so that they can have continuity of care as they go through their phases of life and adulthood. In teenage, we won't even talk about the teenage trips of up and down, but just having that level of support, I think, is always going to be beneficial to families across the lifespan. So supporting, let me make sure, Dana, am I doing this piece?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Supporting caregivers of adults. And again, a lot of this is stuff that I've already said. As you grow up, children get to decide the direction that they're going to take, right? So we can't always be involved, but we can make an impact along the way. And if it's not you, it can be other peer supports that can support our children, the family members that we are caregiving for. And then also navigating through adult service systems. That's a whole different system. If you've never had an adult child and you've never been exposed to adult services, that's again a great place for a family peer specialist to come in and say, hey, let's brainstorm. First of all, talking to that adult child, what is the goal that you're looking for? Even if they can't figure out goals, just, if you had a wish of 3 things, just kind of working with them to figure out what they want. and then be able to expose them to various systems in the adult world that can help them. Next slide. So again, just thinking about those transition age youth, 16 to 25. And some people, are surprised that you say to 25, but children are still trying to figure things out. Some children are in college, some children are starting a career. We just need to figure out how can we prepare them for the change that's happening? Because they step from like high school, they graduate from high school and they're going in a different path, whether they're at home, whether they're doing vocational training, and whether they're going to college, or whether they're just literally at home trying to figure out what life is, connecting them with different things. We talked about some adult services like vocational rehab, or the help me out with the CLS.
Community living services.
Yes, community living services. If children have developmental concerns or things along those lines, or even community living services with addiction. So we have to, talk to our children and youth about that as a transitioning. So then we're looking at young adults from 18 to 26. Family members may see that their adult children or loved ones living more independently and need to really shift from being, in the driver's seat to just being a passenger. And that is sometimes a really hard thing to do, especially if you feel like your child is not going in the right direction, but somehow you have to let them have some level of ownership so that they can make those decisions, but also giving them pointers from the side. And if it's not you, whoever their person is, to give them that support, help them find that person, or if they find it on their own, they have someone else in that driver's seat to assist them as they're steering that car called life, right? So adult loved ones may need assistance finding their own insurance plans as they approach 26, because a whole nother thing happens at 26. If they're on your health insurance, they now have to find their own. So there's a lot of different transitions and things that are happening. So it's probably good to start planning early. I don't think I did it early enough from 18 to 20 and 18 to 23, but I was able to go back and do some things to catch them up. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so supporting caregivers of adults. So planning with the adult family member, what makes you feel more successful? Just questions to think about. I don't want to read all of them to you, but also, what are the barriers to reaching your goals, right? So you have to really talk to the adults, both the adults as well as the adult children, about what they feel like is going to help them be successful. Okay. Who could get answers that we're seeking, or support us in finding the person who has the answers. And sometimes when you work in the mental health field, you have access to that. When you work in substance use field, you have access to that, or people who know people, right? Or sometimes you just have to figure out what your natural supports are. Going to a community center, using your churches, trying to figure out what natural supports can help both you and the person you're providing care for to reach those goals. Because sometimes it's like there are programs that we don't even know about, right? Everybody doesn't have the same access to information. So I think that families really need to be able to use natural supports as caregivers and caring for adults. Okay, so we're talking about speaking with system staff. Agencies, everybody has their own areas of focus, right? So agencies will be like kind of meet their goals in terms of how many hours they're supposed to do, what services do they actually qualify for. And that's why we need parents and caregivers in the room to say, you know what, let's bring it back around to the family. This sounds nice, but has the family agreed with this, right? Do they have 20 hours to spend with you this week, right? Just because the program description says it's 20 hours a week, is that intrusive towards the family? Or can the family say that I need 15 hours, 10 hours is appropriate because we're working and we're going to school, or whatever the case is. And then the other thing is that even with Medicaid, determining you feel that your child may need a service and they're looking to see if there's medical necessity involved, right? And they may decline or deny a claim. But the other thing about that is that, we have to be in a space that we know that there's an appeal process that everyone has if you are denied a service. And sometimes it's as simple as the worker that you're working with wrote up the plan an incorrect way. They're looking for certain language, they're looking for certain milestones and things along those lines. So if you ever have the concerns or issues around Medicaid saying, this child does not meet medical necessity for this service, to ask to see the paperwork. And that's part of being an advocate, to ask to see the paperwork, ask them about what is their appeal process. And if you really believe that's the service that your child or person you're caregiving for needs, to ask those questions. So, and it takes a whole, you don't want to keep saying it takes a whole village, but it does. It takes family supporting families. It takes our natural supports for us to get ahead and for us to figure out the best care for family members. Okay. We can go to the next slide.
I'm going to do the next slide. Did you want to talk about the going away from asking yes/no questions, because those might end a conversation real quick?
Yes. Right. And then just, of course, using open-ended questions, right? You don't just want to ask questions and say, do you feel okay in this meeting? Ask them those specifically. How are you feeling about the meeting? What are your plans when we go in the meeting? Not just kind of like the yes or no about that. I'm sorry, Dana.
No, you're great.
Yeah. So if you want to speak more to that, feel free.
No. Okay. There's a great example on the slides that you'll get. So now let's just bring it back to family peer support specialist competencies. So at the National Federation of Families, we have 5 core competencies. So earlier I talked to you about all of the different job tasks and skills that family peers need to be able to offer that support across the lifespan. And when we're certifying family peers, we make sure that they are able to perform those duties by making sure that they have the training required to master these 5 competencies. Our first one is resiliency, recovery, and wellness. So that's talking about self-care, community care, the recovery principles, making sure families understand the recovery principles, and making sure that family peers are focused on resiliency, not being strengths-based, instead of focusing on the challenges all the time. Then our next competency is affecting change. And this one is primarily about advocacy, giving families the tools that they need to be able to advocate at an individual level, at a systems level, at a societal level, making sure that they understand what advocacy looks like in a meeting and on Capitol Hill. The third competency is resources and natural supports. So for this, family peers really understand where to go when a family has a challenge. They're going to understand which people to go to help get that family some solutions. They're going to understand which tip sheets and toolkits and infographics would be helpful to hand to a family or a system staff member. They are also educating system staff members. For natural supports, family peers understand how to ask questions of families so that they can identify the people and the communities that are already in their lives that are acting as a support. For systems knowledge and navigation, that you are all probably very familiar with all the various different systems that family peers, first of all, they understand who to call. They understand how to get a meeting. They understand how these meetings go and what kind of terminology is used, a little bit about what we talked about just before, about the specific ways to frame a question. And they also understand how to get through all of those systems and how to bring those systems together to work with the family as equal partners. And our last core competency is professional responsibilities. So family peers understand that this is a profession. We must set boundaries with the families that we are working with. We're not going to enter into a romantic or a financial relationship with these families. We're sharing our stories, but we're also making sure that we're doing that appropriately. We're not just dominating the family peer service time with our own stories. We're giving that give and take of delivering family peer family peer support, as well as sharing our own stories. Professional responsibilities also include being culturally congruent, not trying to master the knowledge of every single culture, but being open to learning about a family's culture, about an individual's culture, and being respectful and letting them guide you and meeting them where they are. We also have a code of ethics that family peers must abide by. A lot of the things I mentioned are on that code of ethics. And family peer specialists are responsible for understanding the policies of their state regarding mental health and substance use support, as well as the policies of their workplace. This includes how to take notes and document services properly and fill out the correct paperwork and get it uploaded to the right place. So a lot of the things I spoke about at the beginning of our presentation, those were job tasks, and sometimes they fit very cleanly into one of these core competencies, but there's also a lot of overlap and they all work together. And we do have a certification program, as I mentioned, where family peers have to show us that they have had training in all 5 of these competencies, and then they do complete an exam that tests their knowledge of all 5 of these competencies across the lifespan. Lachelle spoke about how family peer support looks different when it's an elementary school child or an adult, but these core competencies are in place no matter the age of the family member that a family peer is supporting. One really important thing that goes throughout all 5 of those core competencies is person-centeredness. So you can put it in the chat or not. You can think about your own work if you're a behavioral health worker, or you can think about the work of those you've interacted with if you're primarily a family member today in this room. But reflect on the support that you have experienced or seen or given, and think about how person-centered it is. Are you treating people with dignity and respect? Are you encouraging growth out of a person's existing strengths and talents? Are you supporting a person to engage in their community and build meaningful relationships? Do you listen and take action, not based on what you think the person's goals should be, but on what they say are their goals? Do you make a strong effort to understand what's unique about a person, to understand their religion, their culture, their sexual orientation? Do you learn what the person truly thinks is most important to them when you're doing that planning around goals? That's just a little reflection activity. And if the answer to some of that was not really, we have a lot of great resources around person-centeredness on our toolkit, which should be in the resource section. Family peers also make sure that their work is always family-driven. That means that families are not just tokens at meetings, but they have a primary decision-making role for their own loved ones. It means that their voice is heard in the meetings at the school, in the meetings in the doctor's office. They're heard when they go to a state decision maker. They're heard when they go to the Capitol Hill. It's all levels that authentic partnership is really occurring. So family peers can help be family driven by identifying families' dreams, strengths, challenges, and desired outcomes and goals, and then breaking it down to figure out what steps will help them get there. Family drivenness also means that families are designing, implementing, and monitoring and evaluating services, supports, programs, policies, and systems, being at that table every step of the way. Family drivenness also means that we're choosing culturally and linguistically responsive supports, services, and providers. And the most important thing, if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, family peers are always trying to partner with families, be equals, walk with them, not drag them along, and they help model that so that families are then partners with decision making in all levels. We've got one more content slide for you. Another way that family peers support caregivers of loved ones of any age is to ask families, instead of telling them, here's what you should do, they ask families what would best support you. And then they give them a menu of options and let the family tell them what they need in that moment. It might be listening to the family peers story. It might be having someone walk them through accessing services. It might be having someone to advocate for them early on and then teach them how to advocate for themselves. And it might be learning what a family-centered, person-centered planning process looks like when they're creating their plan. But giving the family that autonomy and that decision-making power can be really, really powerful. So I want to pass it back to Lachelle briefly to tell you about our new curriculum, and then we'll take a few questions. And Amanda Grace, if we could have 2 minutes at the end to share about some upcoming events, that would be great.
Okay, so we do have an online curriculum that you can that you can utilize at no cost. It is a self-paced curriculum, and it goes over those five core competencies that Dana talked about to become a family peer specialist. So we will share this with you, and it's the link there that you could do that. Like we said, you could do it at your own pace, and it's going to help build up your skills in every area of those five competencies. And it also will help you if you ever plan to become nationally certified and to get some credits for your hours, and by preparing you for the exam. So questions and answers. I don't know if we
Stop sharing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Before we hop into the Q&A, I just want to remind everyone that to please complete the summit survey on the reception page at the end of the day. We appreciate your feedback. And as a reminder that you must complete that survey to request your continuing education hours. But we do have some questions in the Q&A. Let's see which ones have the most votes. We have, how can providers access family support training?
That is a fabulous question. So Lachelle mentioned our National Family Technical Assistance Center. So we do have 3 live training events every single month. And if you go on our website, www.nfstac.org, you can find recordings for all of our trainings as well. Those are national trainings. However, there's local family support trainings at all of those family-run organizations that are our affiliates. So if you're wanting an in-person training session, you can check that out. For our certification, we don't have specific trainings that you have to take. You just have to have 88 hours within those 5 core competencies. And I see another question about training for family peer that is lifespan approach. That curriculum that Lachelle just mentioned is a great training. And there are also some trainings that specifically mention lifespan on the NAFSTAC website as well. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Lachelle.
No, I just put the NAFSTAC website in place. And then once you get the slides, you can access the curriculum for training. And I think it's a great for all professions to understand the importance of supporting families through the lifespan.
Awesome. This one is from Carolyn. Can a prospective family partner be successful if they require training in all areas of systems knowledge and navigation? Imagine someone who has relevant parenting experience but chose to exclude the usual systems most of us have engaged with.
So just want to make sure I'm clear. Saying, can they be a successful peer support if they have the parenting of a child with mental health or substance use concerns, but has just been in different systems?
I think that is
Okay, because if that is the case, like you don't literally have to be trained in mental health and substance use, but if you parent a child that went through substance use concerns and you had to get them into services, most likely you've had some level of experience. So you can be as successful. You can be successful through learning, learning about the systems, going deeper, talking with other family members and things along those lines. So I do believe that you can be successful.
So Carolyn did specify. So
Okay.
this parent decided to homeschool compared to like relative, like public school, and provide. There was no therapy, nothing. So I guess like just parenting experience. Could they still be successful?
I believe that you could be successful with training. Again, even if your child never went into the school system, there you've been to the doctor's office. You kind of know how that process works. You know what I mean? So it kind of gets it's situational, really. You know what I mean? But I do believe if a parent has taken care of a child with a mental health or substance use concern, that they can be successful, because especially if they've begun getting the child the services that they need. You don't have to work in the mental health field, but just going to a doctor's office, going to see a psychiatrist, talking to a pharmacist about prescriptions, just understanding those systems. And again, education, education, education. And I don't mean formal. I mean, with other family members, groups, and activities like this.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I know that Dana's asked for 2 minutes to share something at the end. We have 2 minutes, Dana. The floor is all yours.
Great. Before I do that, I do want to address one other question about, can providers access family peer support training? Yes, absolutely. At NAFSTAC, all of our trainings are open to the public. You don't have to be a family peer to take our trainings, but we do actually have a really great training specifically meant for providers about partnering with families, which you can also find on our website. So I wanted to shout that out too.
Yes.
But yes, before I leave you, I want to make sure you know a little bit more about our 3 live events each month. We're wrapping some of them up in June, but we'll be back in September. We have Family Connections the first Thursday of each month, and that's really meant for family members to come together with a subject matter expert to get a very brief presentation, but spend most of the time asking questions about their challenges and co-learning together. Office hours is the second Tuesday of each month. We use that this year. It's for family peers to get some really specific direction from subject matter experts and then co-learn together. And then the NAFSTAC webinar is usually the third Wednesday of each month. This month we're doing one each Wednesday. We focus on really critical topics and go really in depth for 90 minutes with subject matter experts. We also have a SAMHSA-sponsored webinar series, Person-Centered, Family-Driven Mental Health and Substance Use Support, A Path Towards Equity. You can watch the recording of our first session, Mental Health and Substance Use Challenges, Overcoming Challenges to Access for Families. We'll have a recording of the next one coming soon. You can check the NFF YouTube page. And then you can also register for our 2 in July. One's about poverty as an equity issue in mental health and substance use, and the other's about the evidence base for informal and formal family peer support. Please contact Lachelle and I if you have any questions. I'll make sure to get the slideshow uploaded correctly. And then you can also follow us on social media. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lachelle and Dana, for this amazing presentation. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.